Thom Hartmann here with you. Well, I got an email from Donald Trump this morning. If I'm guessing probably most of you didn't contribute money to the Trump campaign. And I've been doing this show for 14, 15 years, something like that. And whenever there's an election, every 4 years, the presidential elections anyway, I always give $5 to the Republican early on, typically, because it puts me on their mailing list. So I figure out what's going on. I used to actually kind of gleefully do this because I used to get physical mail. So I knew that my $5 contribution was going to cost them $20 or $30 in mail that they would send me over the course of the next year and a half. Now it's all email, so I'm not quite so gleeful about it, but I still need to be informed, as a talk show host and a commentator, and just as somebody who's curious, right? So I sent $5 to the Trump campaign when they started out, and so therefore I'm constantly getting emails. So I got this email from Donald Trump this morning. He says, Thomas, in 7 days, your government will once again work for you. Now that the House, the Senate, and the White House will all be under Republican control, it's time for you to help prioritize the policies we're going to pass in 2017 to help make America great again. Now, first of all, I get it that this thing is a scam. We put it on our Facebook page and we put it up at the top of Hartmann Report, so you can see the link that this email links to, so you don't have to go give Donald Trump money in order to see the survey that went to probably pretty much every Republican in the country who participated in any way in probably any Republican programs, at the very least, certainly any Donald Trump program. So if you want to see it, it's there. But it first of all, it kind of betrays a bizarre worldview on the part of Donald Trump, which is that of king. And it shouldn't surprise us. I mean, it doesn't require narcissistic personality disorder for Donald Trump to think of himself as a king. He has been king since he was born, right? I mean, he's a princeling. He was born rich. He was born what would today be called a multimillionaire. He was given millions of dollars by his father back in the day. Today, that money would be equivalent to hundreds of millions of dollars, and inherited far more later on. And blew it, what, 5, 6, 7 times bankruptcy, and there's a lot of speculation right now that he's somewhere between $1 billion and $2 billion underwater rather than above water, and that's why he can't divest himself, because if you divest yourself when you're underwater, that's called bankruptcy. But who knows? I mean, he might actually be an incredibly rich guy. It almost doesn't matter. My point is, well, it does matter for a lot of other issues, but apropos of this, my point is that as the CEO of a company, Donald Trump has been king. Particularly a company that's not a publicly traded company. Publicly traded companies at least have to have a board of directors that is relatively transparent. Their financial transactions have to be relatively transparent, because the Securities and Exchange Commission oversees this on behalf of you and me, potential stockholders, people who might, have an IRA or a 401k or whatever and buy some stock in the company. And we have a right to know what's going on with that company because we're a stockholder, right? That's the theory. But Trump's businesses are not publicly traded. They're privately held. So he doesn't have to reveal anything, and he actually is the emperor king of Trump Industries. Whatever he says goes, period. Nobody can dispute it. It's just, that's the end of it. And I think, from everything I've been seeing for the last year and a half, I think he thinks that's how government works. Remember when he tweeted out, "I'm going to ask the heads of the committees in the House and Senate to investigate the intelligence leaks," like a week ago? It's like, well, yeah, you can ask them, but that's not how this country works. It's like Congress does their thing and the president does his thing and the Supreme Court does their thing. But anyway, so just from the get-go, this is kind of bizarre, except for the fact that, like I said, it's a scam. And it's a scam in order to get your email address. So let me warn you, if you fill out the survey for the Republicans, the very last question, and once you click submit, that's going to say, what's your email address, what's your name, what's your zip code? And you will then be on the Republican mailing list, which, of course, you could always take yourself off. But basically what this thing is a push-pull. And this is the fourth or fifth one I've gotten from Donald Trump now, just in the last couple of months. He says, I'm heading to Washington to make deals that benefit the American people, that bring back American jobs, that reignite our energy, reignite American energy, and that strengthen America as a whole. Right. Very encouraging stuff, right? But I need you to tell me, I say that with some irony here, which policies you want me to pass as your champion in the White House. Well, you know, unless you agree with the Republicans that presidential executive orders are, you know, unconstitutional tyranny, he's not the one who will pass them. It's Congress. But anyhow, so here's the 2017 priorities. And it's high priority, low priority, no opinion. There's no option for, are you nuts? Or no way, or give me a friggin' break, or anything like that, unfortunately. So here are the questions. Number one, begin constructing the wall along the southern border. High priority, low priority, no opinion. Number two, repeal and replace Obamacare. Number three, appoint a strong constitutionalist to the Supreme Court in the mode of the late Justice Antonin Scalia. Number four, sign into law the Senate's existing bill to build the Keystone Pipeline. Really? Number five, introduce an infrastructure package to modernize our country. Now, that kind of gets into this area. Bernie Sanders was in the news today because last night he made, Bernie's been saying this all along. He said that he's willing to work with Donald Trump. If Donald Trump wants to change our trade policies in a way that helps American workers, Bernie will help him. And you know, Bernie has taught me a lot about politics over the years. I owe a lot of my political vision, not that Bernie and I had different points of view at all from the get-go. It's one of the reasons why when he first came over to our house in Vermont and started broadcasting from there when we were doing this show in 2003, literally from our home in Vermont, from my office, that we instantly clicked was because, you know, to the best of my knowledge, there's not a single issue on which Bernie and I disagree. Never has been, to the best of my knowledge. I can't, you know, maybe there's something, but I can't think of anything. But, you know, this infrastructure package, the TPP trade, things like this, these would be good for this country if they're done right, assuming that they're done right. And Bernie said, you know, if you're going to go off on some racist agenda, count me out. I'm going to fight you as hard as I can. But on the areas where we can work together, we can work together. And I've been of the position that, you know, no way. I want, you know, let's obstruct, let's, you know, destroy, let's do what the Republicans tried to do to President Obama. That may not be the smartest policy, and I'm really struggling with this thing. So, you know, my thinking changes daily on it. So this is not, you know, Bernie's position versus my, damn it, no way. I mean, I definitely, this is the home of the resistance, you know, there's no doubt about that. But if Trump can get the Republicans to agree to something that they've never agreed to before, which is doing away with Ronald Reagan and George Herbert Walker Bush's fever dream of free trade, then it would be a good thing for America. I would support it. So anyhow, back to his list. Introduce or an infrastructure package. Now, here's the problem. You know, he said, yeah, we're going to do an infrastructure package, and it's not going to cost us anything because we're going to bring in independent investors. So, in other words, yeah, we'll build infrastructure, but it's not we the people. It's not the country that's going to build it. It's going to be the billionaires. So they're going to own it. So they're going to put toll roads on, you know, put bridge, you know, toll booths. You get to pay to use everything. So anyhow, that's his fifth question. Number six, unleash the Middle Class Tax Relief and Simplification Act. Now, I'm telling you, this is where I get this Ronald Reagan deja vu all over again. It's the 1980s all over again. Reagan sold us a series of tax measures that took the top income tax rate on millionaires and billionaires from 74%. Now, they didn't pay that on their first million or two that they made. They paid much lower rates than that. But after a couple $1 million in today's dollars, after about $3 million in today's dollars, they started hitting the 74% tax bracket, at which point most of them said, you know, leave the money in the company. Which is why, prior to Reagan, CEOs of the biggest companies in America only made 30 times what their most poorly paid employee, what their janitors made. They didn't make that much. They were rich, but they weren't mind-bogglingly rich, so rich that it just sucks up all the money so that there's nothing left for the middle class. It didn't used to be that way. So Reagan sold his tax cuts on millionaires and billionaires as a middle-class tax cut. And he got all these Reagan Democrats to go along, oh, boy, he's going to cut our taxes. Ain't that great? Not realizing that when average working people get a tax cut, they generally do not get raises in the future. In fact, they may even see their wages go down because their employers know what their net is, and broadly speaking, and what they're willing to work for, or what the job market for that matter. It's not even a matter of individual employers. This is systemic. It's all across the country. Whereas when billionaires get a tax cut, they actually get to keep the extra money. Somebody needs to help middle class, working class people realize that actually if your taxes go up, your wages are going to go up. Because you'll have less take-home pay, which means that people are less likely to do those jobs, which means that employers are going to have to start competing in the job market for those workers, which means they're going to have to start paying more, which is how it always works, by the way. Look back through history. Whenever the taxes on working people have gone up, wages have gone up faster, actually. Whenever taxes on working people have gone down, wages have gone down. Completely different set of rules for the uber rich. Completely, and I'm not talking about somebody making, a couple $100,000 a year. I'm talking about people making 5, 10, 20, 50, 100, 500, $1,000 million a year, $1 billion a year. So yeah, that's number 6. Number 7, announce our official withdrawal from the TPP. That's already pretty much been done. Was that number 8? Number 8, renegotiate NAFTA into terms that protect the American worker. I'm willing to listen. Number 9, propose a constitutional amendment to impose term limits on all members of Congress. In other words, turn Congress over to the lobbyists, basically. Let the lobbyists become the permanent infrastructure in Congress and forget about institutional memory. Forget about people like John Lewis or John McCain, for that matter, who've been around so long that they know how things work and they can help the younger members figure things out. When they're gone because of term limits, guess who has been around forever? The lobbyists. Term limits, whether it's at the city level, the state level, the county level, or the federal level, the effect of term limits is always to strengthen the power of lobbyists. Period. But for some reason, people think term limits are like the solution. We have term limits. They're called elections, for goodness sake. Number 10, lift the restrictions on the production of $50 trillion worth of American energy, including shale oil, natural gas, and clean coal. Now, if we're talking $50 trillion worth of this stuff, lift the restrictions, what he's saying is let them tear up Yellowstone looking for oil or gas or coal. And not just Yellowstone, obviously. All the national parks of the United States. For this amount of money, that would basically be all that land that's owned by the federal government. That's mind-bogglingly bad. Number 11, cancel billions of dollars in payments to the UN climate change programs and use that money to fix our own country. Nice little codicil on the end there. But again, defund the UN. This is terrible. Number 12, allow Americans to deduct child care and elder care from their taxes. I support that. Number 13, end all federal funding to sanctuary cities that circumvent the law in order to provide protection to illegal immigrants. See, they're misrepresenting sanctuary cities. Sanctuary cities are about making sure that people who are here without documentation still are not afraid to call the police if they're the victims of crime. So, anyhow, it goes on from there. I'll let you look it up. Like I said, it's at the top of HartmannReport.com.